In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the Web Accessibility Evaluation Tool, or WAVE, to evaluate the accessibility of two websites. We'll look at a website that is very accessible, and we'll look at a website that is rather inaccessible. So to get started, I open up wave.webaim.org. My first website, an example of a very accessible website, it's a good example, is ready.gov. It's a government website that teaches you to do emergency planning. Just scrolling through, it looks pretty clean. I expect good things from this site. So I'll just go ahead and copy the URL for this and pop it into Web Accessibility Evaluation Tool. So it takes just a moment to generate your accessibility report. One thing I'll note right away that it is only evaluating this single web page. Ready.gov is a very large website with many pages, but right now we're only evaluating one web page. So the web page itself has been marked up with a lot of icons so we can see the individual results of our accessibility report. And on the left here, we've got a list of errors, alerts, features, so on and so forth. So I'm always interested in looking at the errors first. To take a look at those, I'll click on the little red flag here. And this website shows 3 errors. It says that there are empty buttons. Depending on the website, when you click on these, sometimes it'll take you straight there. Sometimes it won't. But empty button sounds relatively unimportant as far as accessibility goes, but we'll take a closer look in just a moment to see if we can find those empty buttons. But if you want to know what this means, you can click on the little blue eye. And what it tells you is that a button is empty or has no value text. But the algorithm in English explains it a little bit better. Basically, there's an element here that's supposed to have basically a text alternative or a value so that a screen reader user would know what the button was going to do if they were to select it, and that's missing. So I'll take a look for that in just a minute. Let's take a look at a few other things. So under alerts, this is not listed as errors, but sometimes the things you'll find under alerts and under features as well will actually count as errors. So errors are kind of like the big things that are really clear, but you need a human eye sometimes to check the alerts and the features to see if things are working as they should. But it'll flag these things for you so that you can check them. So one example is the pictures here do have alternative text, but it thinks that this one is a little bit too long. You can click on the blue eye to tell us about that. And it looks like the guideline here is that you want your alternative text to be 100 characters or less. So maybe this is a little bit excessive and we could trim that down. Let's see, we've got a possible heading here. We've got H1. Heading 1, that's the biggest main heading at the top here, which is appropriate. And Wave is unsure if this should be additional heading or a subheading. I went ahead and did a view page source on the main page for this. You have to exit out of Wave to see just the regular page source. And I found what it was looking for as far as thinking this might be a heading. It's classified as a tagline, but it's a paragraph feature underneath H1, so I think that's why it flagged it as a possible headline, but I think it makes sense that it is classified as it is, just as a tagline, so I wouldn't consider that an error myself. There's some redundant title text here. What that means is if you hover over it, you'll see that home, the tooltip will show that says home. That's redundant. So basically there's an additional description of each of these as a value in that HTML tag, but it's redundant. There's no need for this to say about us if I hover over about us. So that's something that could be removed. There's some good things here. Basically everything has alternative text. You can see Ready logo, search icon. If you scroll down, it actually labels these for you helpfully in green. It tells you all the logos. There is one that is missing alternative text. It's this picture here of what looks like a some sort of savings hand-drawn grid sheet. So that is something that needs to be fixed. Some additional things here, form label. That's great. There's a form label. I don't know a whole lot about forms myself and making them accessible, but that is a good thing that is there. And there's some skip links here, which mean that there's a kind of a hidden, it's often a hidden link at the top of a web page that allows users to skip over navigation, so that if you're using a screen reader and there's navigation at the top of every page on a website, you're able to use the skip link to jump over that and just get to the meat of the page. Because if you're navigating that with a screen reader, you don't need to hear the navigation for every single page. It's going to take up way too much of your time, so you can jump over it to the main content, which is fantastic and as it should be. Some other things down here, structural elements. You can see that headings are in use and they seem to be structured appropriately. It looks like there's a reasonable number of headings here that a person would be able to scroll through fairly quickly. Information is structured as unordered lists, which makes it, again, easy for people to scroll through with a screen reader. There's some more additional elements down here I won't discuss, HTML5 and ARIA. These are web development features that are in the code that make a website and a web page easier for a person to use with a screen reader. I'm not too familiar with them, so I'll just leave those alone for now. All right, so we've gone through the main report under the little styles tab here on Wave. There's a couple other things we can do. On this tab here, this is the outline. If you click on that, it gives you a heading outline of everything on this page. Again, we can see H1, plan ahead for disasters, neat and tidy, and then everything else on the page is H2 and looks very scrollable for someone with a screen reader. That's fantastic. Now let's go ahead and move on. So this page looks great as it is. Wave has another feature where you can see how this page looks without any style at all. And the idea of this is basically if you're using a screen reader, this is how the web page would appear to you, or how it would be read aloud to you in the order that it'd be read aloud to you. So again, you got the navigation at the top here, but there'll be a skip link option for you to skip the navigation, and then everything else scrolls through really neatly. And if we leave it on no styles and we go back to our alerts and errors, and we click on these, it'll take us a little bit more clearly to where all of these are on the page. Because we stripped away the styles, it's easier to find these items on the web page itself. So that's just a nice way to look and see that everything's in order. I feel confident if I was using a screen reader, I would be able to navigate this page pretty easily, because this no styles feature is really neat and tidy, just like the regular pages. So I think this is overall a very accessible website. There's a couple of small issues that could be fixed, but no website is going to be perfect. I think this one's pretty good. Last item, let's take a look at before we move on. There's a contrast tab here. No contrast issues were detected, but it's not looking at background images or gradients, etc. So it does offer a tool here where you can manually input a color. You could either, again, go to the source and try to check for the colors that are in the back end, or you could try to pick out the colors in a given graphic. For instance, this text is over a background image. Maybe you'd want to try to pick out some of the colors in this image and make sure that this text does have appropriate contrast with the background image. So that's something you can do here. Now, as you move this around too, you'll see that these move to fail. So if you used this color with white, that would be a fail. But otherwise, it looked like everything went fine. And there is also an option here to desaturate the page, so you can see what it would look like for maybe a person that has some color blindness or other vision issues that might keep them from getting the full experience of a page with color. It's nice to be able to see a page in grayscale so that you can kind of pick out some of those contrast issues. So that's it for looking at this web page. Let's go ahead and move on to a web page that is a little bit more challenging for users. Okay, so I've already pulled up the WAVE report for University of Phoenix. This is the University of Phoenix webpage. It's a for-profit university. Looking at it, it looks like a pretty neat and tidy website. There is a lot of information. This is the home page, and I am a little surprised how many menus and navigation there are and how much information is here. So I'll be interested to see the report for this. So I've already plugged it into WAVE. It detected 26 errors, 64 alerts, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and go back to the main styles. This is the landing tab for your WAVE reports. You can see that this is really marked up. And it's not necessarily bad. There's a lot of area elements here, which, as I mentioned, are web development tags on the source end, on the back end, that are there to help users use this web page with assistive technology. So that's not necessarily a bad thing that these are here, but I am concerned that I'm seeing some red issues here. And there's also just a lot going on. So let's take a look at the red flag here. All right, so here are the definite errors: missing form labels, multiple form labels. Again, I'm not an expert in forms, but there's definitely some technical aspects of the form that is missing in this page. There's empty headings. It's not taking us to where those are, again, because there's just a lot going on with this page. So I'm going to go ahead and click on No Styles. So it cleans up the page and I can see everything on the page. There's kind of a lot going on again. And now if I click on these, it'll take me to where the issue is. So this one, it looks like there's an H2 tag in the back end, but it's empty. So that means there's an H2 opening tag, an H2 closing tag, but there's no actual text in the tag itself. That's a really big deal because a screen reader is going to scroll through this H2, this heading 2, and there's not going to be any information there for the user. It's just going to be a waste of the user's time. It's also a missed opportunity to better organize content. So there's a few of those. There's some empty links, which means that these elements are linked. There's an href tag in the back end that will take the user someplace else or will perform an action, but it's not telling the user what that action is. There's additional alerts down here. This one has redundant alternative text, so it looks like this image is probably already labeled as add choices, but there's alternative text that says it's add choices. You don't need to have that twice. Some more possible headings like we saw on the last page. Looks like it's just kind of some confusing formatting in the background. Let's see, we got suspicious link text. Again, you can click on the little blue information logo to see what's up with that. May contain extraneous text or may not make sense out of context. Remember, if you're using a screen reader, it's going to read you the link text so that you know if you want to click or if you want to select that link or not. This one just says read more. This is a big no-no in web design and development. This tells the user nothing about where they're going to go. They don't know what they're going to read more about if they were scrolling through all the links on a page. Okay, this should be more descriptive, so that's what makes it suspicious. There's also a lot of redundant links on this page. If you click on them, it's not real clear at first glance what the issue here is, but the issue is that there's more than one link that goes to the same URL. Again, if you're using a screen reader, you're going to be able to scroll through all the links and see if there's any that you want to select. There should not be more than one link to the same place on a page because it's going to waste your time, it's redundant. It should only appear once on a page, especially when it's adjacent. Let's see, there's some good things here. There are images that have alt text, which is great. There are linked images with alt text. So it looks like they did cover the basics of alt text, which is great. There's some skip links, some skip link targets. Again, that's great for those using screen readers. I become more concerned as I scroll down and look at the heading levels. So it looks like the semantics are appropriate. We start with H1, go to H2, go to H3, but there's just so many headings here. If I was using a screen reader, I'm not going to bother going through, gosh, 100 something of these to see what all the different heading levels are. There's also a ton of unordered lists. This is way too much content for one page. Or if you wanted to keep all this content in one page, there's definitely ways to better structure it that would make it more browsable for anybody. And then we get to all the area stuff down here. You can see there's just a lot. It's kind of messy code in the back end is what this is telling me. Let's take a look at the outline. As I kind of suspected here, there's just too many headings. There's too much going on here. The semantics are appropriate. It looks like you've got a pretty good order here as far as H1 goes above H2, and H3 is below both of those. But there's just a lot here, especially when these become questions. These should probably be ordered lists underneath the even smaller subheading. There's just too much here for people to be able to browse reasonably. And then if we head over to contrast, there's actually 14 instances here of very low contrast. It looks like it doesn't like the white text on this sort of like pale red color. It doesn't like this white text on the background of this button. It looks like it kind of turns a really light gray, things like that. So actually it tells you down here, the normal text and the large text, all of this is failing the WCAG standards, AA and AAA. If you were to desaturate the page, you can take a look at it. It doesn't look too terrible to my average vision, but if there's someone using this page that had issues with contrast, they would struggle to read this page, and that's a really big deal. So again, if you wanted to, you could always pull up the actual page itself and do a view page source so you can see what's going on in the back end. I was interested to see as I scroll through this page, it's a lot. This is not nice and neat, tidy web programming. This is super messy. There's lots of weird spaces when you're at the top here. Just by looking at the code without reading anything, you can kind of see there's going to be some issues. It's not neat and tidy. And let's contrast that again to the ready.gov source code, where everything is very neat and tidy. It's got some script, but otherwise everything is kind of short and sweet, really well organized. Just from looking at this without reading anything, you'd know it's probably going to be a good website. Okay, so that is it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. I really enjoy using Wave, the Web Accessibility Evaluation Tool. It's a fantastic tool for evaluating your websites, and I hope you find it useful as you do your own accessibility testing.